Organisation Amnesty International says that no one in South Africa or anywhere should be killed simply for fighting for their rights. The group says many people who fight for human rights end up being harassed or intimidated or violently attacked. Cassandra Dorasamy is from Amnesty International South Africa. Cassandra, good afternoon to you. On paper, we have many protections for human rights. What happens in South Africa when people stand up for their human rights? For shack dwellers, for example, what happens to them?
Well, good afternoon, Stephen, and thank you so much for having me. Well, Amnesty International has worked with a couple of organizations protecting human rights, including Abahlali Basemjondolo, which is a shack dwellers organization, one of the largest movements in South Africa. And in their 18-year history, they have faced attacks and threats and harassment for their work. And they have also lost 24 of their members, some of them killed directly because of their work in defending human rights. So as Amnesty International, like you said, we are asking for more to be done to protect those who are defending human rights, to protect the defenders. Because like you say, we have great rights on paper, but it means nothing when it's not delivered and when everyone in South Africa can't enjoy them. And it's people like Abahlali and other human rights defenders like Mamfikile Nchangase and Nontle Mbutuma who defend human rights, who need protection to continue the work that they're doing. And the state has a responsibility in terms of international law to provide that protection. But we, as people living in South Africa, can stand in solidarity and make it known that this is an issue that we care about as well.
Why does it happen so often? I mean, why are people using violence to stop those fighting for their human rights? Do they do it because, I hate to say this, they know they'll get away with it?
Precisely. There's impunity for attacks on human rights defenders, impunity for murders that occur in South Africa. Without an effective criminal justice system to bring those who are responsible for the attacks and killings to account, then people know, like you say, that they can get away with it.
Is there a big problem with the police? If police policed human rights, protected human rights, that would probably change the game. Often, unfortunately, they're the ones who abuse people's human rights, and particularly in the case of Abahlali Basemjondolo.
Yes, and I think it goes back again to the effectiveness of the criminal justice system. And there's much to be said about issues within policing, limitations within police, a political will to see policing being conducted in a manner that's respectful of human rights and that brings perpetrators, specifically for a movement like Abahlali Basemjondolo, which is a grassroots movement, which is a predominantly black and poor movement. We need to see more political will within policing to see justice for people who might not have a big profile or a big name, but are really important in the framework of South African human rights and should be protected and should see justice for attacks and killings of their members.
How do we properly entrench a culture of human rights? I mean, how do you make sure that that doesn't happen, that people are able to, to be activists, are able to essentially try and continue the fight for freedom in a way that they know they'll be safe?
Well, there's two things, and one of them is what we're calling for, and that is legislative intervention, because we can't deal with these instances of threats and violence against human rights defenders on a case-by-case basis. We need to have a more systemic approach, and we believe that a legislative intervention would be important to give recognition to human rights defenders and the work that they're doing, and to offer unique protections for the type of work that they're doing. So the UN Declaration on Human Rights Defenders is a consolidation of basic rights, but specific to human rights defenders and more nuanced to the type of work that they do. And we need something similar in South Africa where we consolidate the rights. We know that everyone has the right to life. Everyone has the right to safety and security. But there's specific nuances to the work that human rights defenders do that put them at greater risk. And we need a legislative approach that recognizes that. And that intervention, that state intervention, should come through consultation with human rights defenders and people who are on the front line and have experienced these attacks and killings, and they should be the ones whose lived experiences inform any legislative intervention.
Transparency obviously matters here. Media coverage matters here. We had hoped that social media might make our country more democratic. And in a way, I think we must be fair, it has. I don't know if that process will really continue, though. Sometimes, social media is used against people fighting for human rights, for example. There are all sorts of things here that all come down to transparency and whether people know about what's really happening.
Exactly, and conversations like this help a lot to enhance the profile of the issue. And the more people hear about it, the more they engage on it, I think the more committed they become to acting on human rights, or we'd hope so. And in instances like with Tupelo Mahapi, the General Secretary of Abahlali Basenjondolo, and other human rights defenders who are under threat and attack, enhancing their profile sometimes helps to aid in protection, protect them from people who want to harm them, and raising their profile through social media, through news and traditional media adds a layer of protection for them. And I think that we all could do something towards that. And Amnesty still has a petition going for Tupelo, who's, like I said, the General Secretary of Abahlali. And if more people add their voice and sign the petition and say that this is an issue, indicate that this is an issue to our government officials that we want to see action on, it's really important to have those sorts of interventions from everyone in South Africa.
Cassandra, thank you very much indeed. Really do appreciate the time. So much going on, of course, with issues around human rights at the moment. And Cassandra was somebody there, the person from Amnesty International.